Two people are sitting at their kitchen tables right now. Same age, same income, same city. One is close to 1 million. The other just crossed it. And everything is about to change. Both staring at their investment accounts. Same city, same age, 41, same income, somewhere around $110,000 a year. Both have been at this for over a decade. The maxed 401k, the automatic transfers, the saying no to things they probably should have been able to say yes to by now. The first guy's balance reads $983,000. He refreshes it every morning like it owes him something. He said yes to a project last month he absolutely didn't want to do because the money felt necessary. He checked his account before booking a flight for his sister's birthday. The number was fine. He checked anyway. The second guy's balance crossed $1 million 4 months ago. He still refreshes his balance every morning, but something is different. When the market dropped 4% last Tuesday, he watched it, shrugged, and made coffee. He turned down a client in September just because he didn't like the project. Not because he could afford a sports car or retire to Tuscany. Just because, for the first time in his adult life, he didn't have to say yes to everything. Same city, same income, $17,000 apart in net worth. Completely different financial lives. And the thing that changed wasn't what either of them expected it to be. Something structural shifts when you cross that number. Not in your lifestyle, not in your salary, not in the furniture in your house, in the math of your life. And once you understand what actually changes and what frustratingly doesn't, you're either going to feel relieved about where you're headed, or you're going to feel a very specific kind of frustration that nobody explained this to you sooner. My name is Sean, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and why certain numbers change everything. If you're building toward this number, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, because today we're breaking down exactly what genuinely changes. When you hit 1 million in net worth, most people building toward 1 million live in a specific kind of low-grade financial tension. It's not poverty, it's not even close, but it's this constant background calculation that never fully turns off. It's checking your account before you say yes to the vacation. Not because you can't afford it, but because you need to confirm you can. It's doing math in your head on a Sunday night about whether this is the month you finally max the IRA, or whether the car maintenance bill is going to eat that. It's the slight pause before ordering the more expensive thing on the menu. Not because for dollars matters, but because for dollars is where the habit of watching lives. There's a ceiling on your decisions that you've stopped noticing because you've been bumping against it your whole adult life. You don't take the lower-paying job that excites you because the risk calculation doesn't clear. You say yes to things you'd prefer to say no to because the financial margin to say no hasn't arrived yet. Hey, here's what nobody tells you, clearly enough. There is a specific number at which that background calculation goes quiet. Not forever, not completely, but noticeably. The first thing that changes at 1 million isn't your life, it's the ceiling. The word millionaire has lost so much of its meaning that it barely registers anymore. So, let's look at what the actual data says. Based on the Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances, reaching 1 million in net worth puts you at approximately the 88th to 89th percentile of American households. The top 1% starts around $13 to $14 million. So 1 million isn't the finish line, but it's real and it's rare. The median American household has a net worth of $192,000. You'd have more than 5 times that. The average age of an American millionaire is 61. Only about 2% of millennials have crossed the threshold. And here's the part that usually surprises people. The Ramsey Solutions National Study of Millionaires surveyed over 10,000 people who got here. 79% received 0 inheritance. 1/3 never earned 6 figures in a single year. The top 5 careers: engineers, accountants, teachers, managers, attorneys. Not hedge fund managers, not tech founders, not crypto people who got lucky in 2021. Teachers. And 75% said their wealth came from one thing: regular, consistent investing over a long period of time. Just the machine running quietly in the background while they lived their lives. Here is the single most important thing to understand about reaching 1 million in invested assets. At a 10% average annual return, roughly what the S&P 500 has historically delivered. A $1 million portfolio generates $100,000 per year in average returns. $100,000 per year. That's more than the median U.S. household income. Your portfolio, just sitting there, not requiring a single hour of your time, earns more per year than most families working full-time. The number in your account is now more productive than you are. That should be either deeply motivating or mildly insulting, depending on how you feel about your career. Compare that to where you were before. At $100,000 in net worth, the same 10% generates $10,000 per year. At $500,000, you're earning $50,000 per year, still below median household income. The jump from $100,000 to $1 million doesn't just multiply your returns by 10. It crosses a threshold where your portfolio is doing more work than your paycheck. That is a fundamentally different relationship with money. The 4% rule from William Bengen's 1994 research says, if you withdraw 4% of your portfolio annually, you have a 95 to 100% historical chance of never running out of money over 30 years. On $1 million, that's $40,000 per year without lifting a finger. Not a yacht, not a ski chalet, but also not checking your account before you say yes to the birthday flight. That is the actual value, not luxury, but the specific freedom from the low-grade financial anxiety that most people carry every single day of their adult lives. And researcher Michael Kitzes found something even more remarkable. In the median historical scenario, after 30 years of those $40,000 withdrawals, the portfolio doesn't approach zero. It ends up at 2.8 times the starting amount. The math doesn't just sustain you, it grows faster than you can take it out. Charlie Munger said, the first 100,000 is a B********, but you got to do it. He was right that 100,000 is the first real inflection point. But 1 million is where the acceleration becomes genuinely hard to believe. Meet Marcus. He's 41. He's been saving $2,750 per month. For most of his working life, at a 7% real return, it took him roughly 15 years to reach 1 million. 15 years of discipline, of not buying the truck. 15 years. Keep the exact same savings rate and return. How long does the second million take? About 6 to 7 years. The third, 4 to 5. One Bogleheads member documented hitting 1 million in 2010, 2 million in 2013, 3 million in 2015. Same income, same contributions. The machine just runs faster as it gets bigger. Here's the math that makes this concrete. Marcus' portfolio is now earning $100,000 per year at 10%. He's contributing $33,000 from savings. His contributions are now less than a quarter of total portfolio growth. To match what his 1 million earns through savings alone, he'd need to put away $8,333 every single month. Most people can't do that, but the portfolio does it automatically every month, whether Marcus is paying attention or not. When Marcus checked his account that Tuesday morning and saw 7 figures for the first time, he expected to feel different, more confident, more certain, some version of arrival. What he actually felt was like the background noise turned down a little. Not off, just lower, which, if you've been running that noise your entire adult financial life, is not nothing. Now, let's talk about the practical advantages that most people have genuinely never heard of, because the financial industry does a remarkable job of keeping these tools invisible to anyone who doesn't already have the money to use them. First, accredited investor status. The SEC defines an accredited investor as someone with a net worth over 1 million, excluding their primary residence. Cross that threshold, and you unlock private equity, venture capital, hedge funds, private real estate syndications, and pre-IPO investments. As of 2022, only 19% of U.S. households qualified. The SEC has essentially decided that if you have less than $1 million, you're not sophisticated enough to access the investments that could help you build $1 million. The irony is airtight, and I suspect entirely intentional. Second, the securities-backed line of credit. This is how wealthy people access cash without selling investments and triggering capital gains taxes. With 1 million in a brokerage account, you can borrow 50 to 95% of that value at rates competitive with mortgages. No capital gains triggered. Investments stay in the market, continuing to earn. You've probably heard of the ultra-wealthy strategy called buy, borrow, die, which sounds like a self-help book for sociopaths, but is actually just how wealthy people legally avoid triggering capital gains their entire lives. The securities-backed line of credit is the mechanism that makes it work. Third, private banking, preferential loan terms, waived fees, and access to investments retail clients can't touch, all unlocking between $500,000 and $1 million at most major institutions. And fourth, tax strategies, donor-advised funds, Roth conversion ladders, tax loss harvesting at meaningful scale that technically exist for everyone but only make economic sense. Once you have enough assets for the math to justify the complexity, none of this is exotic. It's just the normal toolkit that every wealthy person uses, and that nobody explains to you until you already have the money to need it, which tells you a lot about how financial education in this country actually works. So, based on everything I've just told you, crossing 1 million should feel incredible, champagne-worthy. Wake up different. Tell your parents. Incredible. And here's where the research completely destroys that expectation. Wake up different. Tell your parents. Incredible. And here's where the research completely destroys that expectation. The Northwestern Mutual Planning and Progress Study found that nearly 2/3 of people who've crossed the $1 million mark do not think of themselves as wealthy. Fidelity found that 42% of people with an average of $3.5 million in investable assets didn't feel rich, and said they'd need $7.5 million before they started feeling that way. The goalposts don't stop moving just because you score. The Charles Schwab Modern Wealth Survey found Americans think you need 2.3 million to feel wealthy in 2020, up from 1.9 million in 2021. Inflation explains some of it. 1 million in 1990 had the purchasing power of roughly 2.5 million today, but a lot of it is comparison. Because the richer you get, the richer the people around you tend to get. And the human brain famously never stops comparing. Dr. Brad Klontz, a financial psychologist, studies money scripts, deeply held beliefs about money formed in childhood, that persist regardless of actual financial circumstances. His research found that the most financially successful people carry a money vigilance script, constant watchfulness around finances. The problem is that vigilance doesn't relax at 1 million. For a lot of people, it intensifies, because now they can see clearly how much they could lose. Brain imaging research shows that chronic financial stress creates distinct neural patterns that persist long after the financial crisis has passed. You don't flip a switch. The happiness research went through a public revision in 2023, worth knowing. The original Kahneman and Dighton study from 2010 said, emotional well-being plateaus at $75,000 in income. That was the headline for a decade. Then Matthew Killingsworth ran a more precise study and found happiness keeps rising well past $75,000. The two researchers collaborated and published a joint reconciliation. For roughly 80% of people, happiness continues rising with no ceiling up to at least $500,000 per year. For the unhappiest 15 to 20%, it does plateau around $100,000, but because those people are dealing with miseries money cannot fix: bereavement, depression, serious relationship problems. For everyone else, more money keeps improving life. So, what actually changes psychologically at 1 million? Not pleasure, not excitement, relief. Princeton researchers found that financial security, the feeling that what you have won't be taken from you, was the single biggest driver of life satisfaction, not wealth itself. Security. Marcus, for months past the threshold, put it simply. The night he crossed 1 million, he went to sleep at a normal time and didn't do math in his head. He went to sleep without the math. After 20-some years of the math, he said that felt more significant than any number on any screen. Here's the part the financial independence content machine tends to quietly skip past. Wealth management gets dramatically more complex at 1 million. Below that threshold, personal finance is mostly 3 things. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference in index funds. Don't do anything stupid. Above 1 million, you need tax-efficient asset location, withdrawal sequencing, Roth conversion strategies, estate planning, insurance coverage at scale, and you need a team. A fee-only financial advisor, a CPA, an estate attorney, and ideally a therapist for when the first 3 disagree with each other. The professional overhead costs more per year than many people save annually. That's the tax on getting here. A CFA Institute, Monte Carlo simulation found a 44% probability that a person who reaches 1 million ends their life in poverty. That is not a typo. Lifestyle creep, poor withdrawal strategies, and bad decisions can undo decades of accumulation. Goldman Sachs data shows 40% of people earning $500,000 or more still live paycheck to paycheck. The number in your account does not automatically fix the spending behaviors that got you there. Marcus said the biggest unexpected change wasn't freedom. It was realizing how easy it would be to lose it. That's what 1 million actually buys you. Not luxury, not status, but the freedom to say no and the space to live without constant pressure.